भाई और बहनों, in a new ritual we are starting. We will end every year with both hosts recording an episode over a drink, and that is how this episode is being recorded at the end of December. Both of us late into our nights. Me sipping some tequila, and what are you sipping over there?
I am having a glass of Pinot Grigio.
Well done, well done. Good job. Well
Yes.
done.
By the way,
So
we should do this for every episode. Why is this only like an end of the year ritual? I feel like our content will be better. I will be
I agree.
funnier. I
I
will say
agree.
more inappropriate things, which Vishnu will then have to edit out, like what he had to do in the
That is
last
true.
episode, which I will tell you about after recording.
Yes. But I feel keeping it as a once in a while thing will also make people wonder, are these guys doing this one over alcohol, or is this how they normally sound? I feel that
That's
will be
true.
the guess. इस एपिसोड में क्या पिया, चाय कि tequila?
It's always tequila, guys. It's always tequila.
And this week's a fun one, right? Because we're doing predictions for the year. We obviously ran through all our predictions of what we had made in the past. And I obviously, while I ran off on a holiday, you did a
As
fun
usual.
episode. My OnlyFans episode content helped boost more listens for episodes.
Yeah, what was with those nudies, by the way? I love
Not
those
nudies.
like topless videos that you keep posting, and then you'll say all these topless type things like gratitude, gratitude. I'm just like, what is going on?
I'm just sitting on the
What is
beach.
Varun
I'm
grateful
I'm
for?
I'm sitting on a beach. I was gratitude for having come on that Forbes list, and I was like, yeah, who's going to wear a shirt to do this? Let's record it this way.
Of course, that's how we got on the Forbes list in the first place because of
Yes,
Varun without his shirt saying gratitude, gratitude.
exactly. Next thing we'll do dance videos also. But it's been an interesting year, no? At the start of 22, if you ask me, will Elon Musk be like Lex Luthor of the world? I would have not have
Hmm.
guessed that. But that is where it has gone. We also have we had a lot of specific industries I know you predicted would not do well, and they haven't done well. We have some platforms which have done well, like you had predicted as well. I'll give you those wins. But this time I have come prepared with my predictions. But before we get into predictions, it's not been like a massive like newsy week. But to start
Yeah.
off, me saluting my guilty brethren. RRR is nominated in two categories for the 2023 Golden Globes. Have you seen it
I'm
yet?
just going
But
to fall asleep at this point. That's
have you not?
basically like
Have you seen
the
it?
sound. No, I have not seen
Please
RRR.
watch it. Please watch RRR. It's in Hindi as well for you to get the language if you want. It's on Netflix and
Uh-huh.
all the platforms. It's a lot of fun. I have to tell you why. Anthony and Joe Russo, the guys who made the Avengers, were being
Uh-huh.
spoken to about how global content, and their reference point was RRR.
Must
So
be
it's
very
like
bored. They must smoke a lot of weed to watch RRR. By the way,
it
Dhruv
is
is
the best.
obsessed with this movie. He recommends it to
It is
everyone,
outstanding. It is
if you
outstanding. Like
insist.
Rajamouli is by far one of the best filmmakers we've had in the world in a long time. Just true vision in that sense, and full family industries. Dad writes the stories. It's
But this
like,
is pretty awesome, man. I mean, I'm always proud of like India making it to, any sort of global stage, including Deepika Padukone unveiling, not really unveiling, but whatever, opening
yeah,
the, World Cup trophy from its
yeah,
Louis Vuitton case. But this is
yes.
pretty kick-ass, man. I mean, being nominated for the Golden Globes is not a it's not a trivial feat.
And it's really funny that the only thing I found funny was the best original song was what is nominated for, and that song is what I'm gathering is Natu Natu, which
Chipni
is really
Chameli.
funny. No, no. So Natu Natu actually in Telugu
Uh-huh.
means like using chapri dance, like chapri chapri is Natu Natu in Telugu. That's what the
Why don't
song
you
is, but it's
show
really
me the
fun.
dance moves, Varun,
I cannot. I
right
will fall
now?
down. I will fall down. Too old to do those steps. But in slightly more businessy news, Mensa acquires MensXP, IDEVA, and Hype from Times Internet. This is again a continuing offloading, right? I'm guessing from Times Internet.
One is continue offloading. Second, this news was quote unquote leaked to the
A
press
while back.
a
A
while
while back.
ago. And, I think someone had covered it, and I think now it's, gotten more sort of mainstream traction. What I have decided to do next week is write a blog post on my Medium on what happened to all the content bets. Because, I mean, technically
Mm,
speaking, LBB was also a content bet.
yeah.
And if you think about it, I think apart from maybe to some I won't even call share chat a content bet. I think it was more a platform bet. But
Mm.
everyone else, apart from perhaps Tripoto, to some extent, Wed Me Good, if I had to put them into the same general bucket, the Pocket Aces guys, not Loco, but like the Pocket Aces guys,
Yeah.
I think everyone else has, more or less been acquired, or has gone through their journey, right?
Yeah.
And my reason for wanting to write this is because I feel like people talk about every content platform as the same. It's
Yeah.
kind of like saying Big Basket is the same as Amazon. No, it's not. Every
Yeah.
category operates very differently. And even if you look at the who these companies have been acquired by, obviously in the example, in the case of Popexo, Scoop Poop, Plus Plus, it's all gone into the Good Lamb family.
Mm.
There's a Times Internet that's obviously, sold to Mensa. Though we steered away from content very aggressively in the past 3 odd years. We got acquired by Nika this year, but there's a lot that's happened within each of these content bets. So I've
Mm.
taken it upon as a challenge to help just shed some light on what went right, and also where did all these companies, not, I wouldn't even say falter, but what were the bets that they made that played out well, or didn't.
Even globally, right? If you think about it, like think of BuzzFeed or Mashable, all those ones to start this whole piece out, in this sense of the word. If I'm looking at like a men's XP as an example,
Yeah.
or an idea, they, apart from maybe a Houdinki,
Mhm.
everybody else kind of gotten into, like, they're a bit of a, like, a shadow of themselves in that sense of the word. And sometimes wonder. I know Mashable got acquired, but BuzzFeed, I still think about how they've survived.
Yeah, honestly, a lot have, and I think this was the point that I hope I'm able to make with my prospective blog post.
Mm.
It is the fact that content isn't just one thing, it's many different things. So for example, there's a very popular platform called Food 52, which
Mm.
was invested in, I want to say, by either Benchmark or Greylock, or one of these like top tier VCs. There's also Houdinki, which you mentioned. There's Goop. There's so
Yeah.
many others that have been able to build there's Vox Media, there's Vice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for every example that you may say has become a shadow of itself, there are other companies that have grown.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the biggest company of today, man. Look at ByteDance.
Mm.
um, I think this is what a lot of people who will be analyzing the content space don't realize. I think ByteDance, but it took $1 billion of investment to build ByteDance into the behemoth that it is today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's taken billions of dollars to build Flipkart to the level that Flipkart's at, right? Or any of the Indian startups that have become very big, and actually have cash flow to back up that bigness. And I don't think that kind of money was ever given to quote unquote content led companies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at
Yeah.
best they would have raised 15 million, 20 million, not more than that. So I also think a part of it is how much money is on the table, how much money is being invested in building these markets out. But more on that next week.
Yeah. Next week. Next week. Adults are driving growth in the toy industry. I am part of those adults. Is how I would like
Hmm.
to put it. It's an interesting trend of, there's this thing where toys are for kids, uh, but you're seeing more and more adults. And if you even look at something like a Lego, right? They
Yeah.
market now specific things for adults. Even toys, the more expensive collectible ones are all for adults. So it makes sense. But I think the interesting part about this story, which is the fact that a large part of its growth and sustenance is coming from adults buying a lot of these expensive toys in that sense. Are you a toy buyer? What toys have you bought?
Not at all. Zilch. Zero.
Not yeah.
Nada. But I am married to
You
one
don't have
who
a
is
Chacha
obsessed.
Chaudhary soft toy?
Why would I have a Chacha Chaudhary soft toy? Is that why
Sabu?
you have gratitude? Gratitude. Sitting topless on a beach playing with a Chacha
Yes.
Chaudhary toy. Varun, that's what you
Yes,
were
I
doing.
love. His mind, his brain works faster than computer.
Okay, if you insist. Yeah, no, but this article was interesting and
Yeah.
pleasantly surprising.
Netflix branches out into fitness content with upcoming launch of Nike Training Club classes. This Netflix's diversification into these newer forms of content
Hmm.
and ad tier and all that stuff. What's your, like, hot take on this one? Because it's an interesting thing for them to add on, because they've had Headspace content on for a while, which
Yeah.
I've noticed. But this seems to be an interesting one.
I think Netflix is going to have to try throwing a bunch of things on the wall, right, to see what
Mm,
sticks. And they're making all the right bets. They're betting on sports in their own ways through their documentaries, which Vidur and I discussed on Wednesday's episode. They're obviously betting, they're going big on gaming, and gaming not just in the, desktop screen kind of formulation, but they're doubling down on phones, which we guys have also discussed in the past. So I think they're going to have to try a lot of things to see what sticks, and this isn't a
yeah,
half bad bet to make.
yeah. Also, if
And
you
it's
think
free
about it,
content. They
it's
have to
free
cut their
content.
bills.
Yeah, and I feel Nike needs this as well, because if you
Hmm.
look at Nike's always had a tie-up with Apple for the longest time, and they've had the Nike branded Apple Watch. It still is there, although it's not as prominent as it used to be. And
Yeah.
when Apple launches fitness, plan, which is that Apple Fitness Plus, they didn't do it with Nike. They built it in-house. Um, this is in many way Nike finding that platform to move, because I don't know how well that app does anymore. I used to use a Nike training app back in the day, but so many better platforms kind of came up and never really
Hmm.
went back to that. And so this could be a win-win for both. Um,
Hmm.
Netflix gets recurring daily users on the platform for fitness content, and Nike gets a platform like Netflix to kind of go and branch out into the world for. So I guess it'll work for both.
Hmm. Yep. Fingers crossed.
और क्या हुआ
In
है और क्या
unpleasant
हुआ है
news,
Okay.
dude, COVID is apparently staging a comeback. I'm not mentally prepared for this, and I don't
Never
have
went
enough
away.
alcohol in my house.
Yes, never went. It feels like it. I actually was talking to someone saying, "Does it?" Are you thinking about how it was, and now
Yeah.
with you back to this whole thing? I think Karnataka just announced as we've recording this that they're putting in mask mandates in in um, even non-air conditioned indoor spaces in that sense of the word. So
Hmm.
yeah, seems to be a spillover from China in that sense. But the good part is, at least whatever basic stuff I have read says that we have a lot more immunity. But what we all need to kind of go and do is get our booster shots, get one more booster shot, and that should hopefully help a large number of people in that sense of the word. And our last story in today's introduction, which is for once a shorter introduction, Beco.
Shocking, bro.
Beco
Look at
Vajratanti, no,
us.
sorry, Beco.
Yeah. What about Beco?
Is it Beco Vajratanti or is it Beco? What is it?
Tell us, Biko Beko, what are you?
Beco,
Tag us on Twitter and on
eco-friendly home and
Instagram.
personal care D2C startup, has raised $3 million in a Series A funding round led by Rukam Capital, Climate Angels, Dia Mirza, amongst other investors. What's your take on this? I mean, I know you're very focused on the home segment. What's your take on this entire eco-friendly space?
So we've spoken about Biko Beko in the past,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
am very bearish. I
Mm,
think the market is too niche, and I think unless they build some, really interesting patent around a new type of fiber or fabric or
yeah.
disposable, some interesting thingamajig around that. I think scaling this will be hard from a B2C perspective. But what I said the
Mm,
last time around was also, I think over a period of time, one of the larger drivers of revenue could be B2B.
mm,
So really doubling down on restaurants, hotels that are catering to a slightly more premium consumer who will care about brown paper towels instead of white paper towels, this that and the other. So
yeah.
that would be my general consensus on all things Biko Beko.
And with that, we're finishing off our introduction. But the real hot takes are going to come after this break, because we're both getting into our predictions. We also have a fun new random segment we've added in the end. The other you have added, you added as a prediction, and I have coaxed you into making it a segment so I can add my own little extras into that as well. But all of that right after this break, where we will all become Nostradamus. Welcome back to Think Fast, where my jokes are falling on flat ears. Or is
I
it
feel
deaf
like
ears?
tequila does not have a good effect on you. Like, I
Why?
feel like, yeah, because your jokes are usually like bad but funny bad. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You're like watching Hera
Yes.
Fairy. Like, I'm laughing because the jokes is so bad. I want to
Fine. I will
cry.
put the tequila away and we should do
No,
non-tequila
no, no.
jokes today.
Please drink. We need to be like Seth Meyers and Rihanna in that episode of the Tonight Show. But please, let's jump into our Nostradamus predictions.
So let's start with your first prediction for 23. What is it?
Can we get a roll, ladies and gents? They will insert that, Varun. But let's let you enjoy that moment for a second. Okay.
Uh,
Got it. So
it's-
with okay. So the first sorry, prediction for this episode for me is so I've been very, very, very bullish on seeing new channels for advertising because I think Google and Meta rather have had a monopoly for way too long. And if you
mm,
see trends in the US, Amazon, of course, has become the third largest advertising platform. And my prediction, number one, is that advertising will see more prominence in products across e commerce, OTT, fintech, and more. You're already seeing Netflix embrace advertising, though, one may argue that platforms like Hotstar, MX Player have used that strategy from day one.
yeah.
But I think with CACs becoming, much more expensive to sort of moderate on Meta products more specifically, and Google as well, privacy laws becoming stricter, marketers are going to look for more targeted channels to really speak with their audiences. And of course, if you're an e-com platform like Flipkart, which makes a shit ton of money through advertising, and multiple others who are figuring out their own attempts within all things advertising and marketing, I think this revenue stream is going to almost become featureized in
Yeah.
most consumer products that optimize metrics like DAO to MAU or WOW to MAU as their primary metrics. So that's my first prediction.
Do you also think that, and I mean, I agree with this prediction. I think it's actually something that's really happening at a fast pace, rather faster than people predicted.
Hmm.
Do you also feel it's because at some point everybody assumed that you're going from ad driven to subscription? And that seemed to be the obvious way all content will go and platforms will go. But you realize there's a limitation to the number of people who will actually pay for the content, because there was an interesting story on Spotify,
Hmm.
who globally has focused on subscriptions as a growth engine, but in
Yeah.
India they've actually realized that people don't pay for subscriptions, so most of people are on the free tier. So they're having to really dive deeper into their ad space, for instance, right? Really
Hmm.
go deep into that, build more products over there, really push the envelope over there. And they haven't even opened up the ad engine for podcasts in India. They're still doing it only on music. So
Yeah.
I agree with your prediction, and I feel that it's going to happen more and more. And it's also good to not have a duopoly, right? In many ways.
I think one part is that. I think the second is, you know, advertising and marketing in general is it's everything is not just about performance, right? It's everything
Hmm.
from like top of funnel, which is building brand awareness, to middle of your funnel, which is obviously driving consideration for your products. And I think those two, just on a first principles level, can genuinely happen on any platform that has enough recurring users, over certain cadences of time, right? Whether you measure that
Hmm.
time in a day, in a week, or in a month. And I think the second thing, which I actually predicted in 2019 and is playing out fairly well, which we discussed in our last episode on all things fintech, but I think the future of business models is going to be sum of parts, because
Hmm.
it's just impossible to build anything today with only one revenue stream. So more than anything else, as markets become bigger and markets become more competitive, I feel like there will be fractions created with people entering into each other's territories, and hence revenue models will become more sum of parts than just silos, which they've been till now. But you have an interesting prediction as almost like follow up plus related to this.
Yeah. My prediction is actually that AI will chip away at more and more creative jobs, if you look
Hmm.
at it. And while in many cases, you talk about this whole fact that AI can take off all the mundane jobs, etc., but creativity cannot be taken over by AI. That's been debunked this year. Like, I think this 2022 has really shown us what AI can actually do. You got
Hmm.
from like DALI 1 to DALI 2. You're looking at what OpenAI has really been able to do. Everything from captions to imagery to the stuff that's happening on Lensa with and even like chat. It's really shown the scale to which you can actually do it. So
Yeah.
it's going to take away a lot of creative jobs per se, which human beings are doing right now, which anyway
Hmm.
was happening with automation. But I
Hmm.
feel the interesting way to look at it is the fact that it's also going to create a lot of new jobs. People who can write the right kind of prompts, like who's feeding in the data
Yeah.
to the AI. That's a job. Who's figuring out how to communicate that whole piece
Hmm.
to the AI. That's another job. So there's so many newer careers that are going to come up, but you got to understand how to work with the AI. And
Hmm.
our amazing producer Jalasmi has also pointed out that OpenAI is actually building a tool to show for a fact that a caption or something has actually been written by an AI system. And I know we all worry
How
about
interesting.
is this a way for AI to take over? But
Hmm.
if you look at it, it is still not thinking for itself. All it's doing is crawling the internet, crawling
Yeah.
all the data it has, and
It's like a
figuring out
Google
the
part two.
exactly. It's the evolution of
Yeah.
Google. Which then asked me, what is Google doing in all this?
Mm, a lot actually. So
Mm,
we guys discussed this again as a part of the last episode because I had a chance to go for the Google for India event, and AI for them is going to be at the backbone of a lot of the search features that they build out. It's going to be a lot of how they even imagine the experience for I want to say a mix of rural India, or like in another way, I would describe it as 0 to 400 million plus India. So basically, a
mm,
400 million plus the next set of users. AI is going to be an integral part in the way they're able to capture that consumer base and that consumer cohort. So I don't know, man. I think AI to me is a little bit of is an underlying technology.
mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll disrupt existing consumer facing technologies. I actually think it'll make a lot of them much more efficient.
Yeah.
And AI is not exclusive. Do you know what I mean? Like Chat GPT is not an authority on AI. Neither is OpenAI, which is run by Sam Altman.
Mm,
Artificial intelligence isn't proprietary to one,
yeah.
company or one platform. Um, though, of course, what Chat GPT has done is it's democratized a lot of access to, which we discussed earlier as well, right? Like Pepper content could have much more interesting captions, content, etc.,
Yeah.
built out, using this underlying technology. So, long story short, I don't know if it'll have any prima facie disruptions. I do think it's a really new, interesting layer on top of which new businesses can be built, much like what the promise of Web3 was.
Mm,
Web3's
mm,
whole promise was that it was this underlying technology on top of which cool new shit could be built. But
yeah.
we really didn't see that happening. So, in
Yeah.
my opinion, OpenAI AI is the closest we're getting to,
Yeah, and also like
yeah, all
just
of
adding
this.
to what you're saying, what you can build on top of it, right? Varun Maya, the co-founder of Avalon in
Hmm.
India, he's built something called God in a Box, and what God in a Box, which is built on top of this platform, the OpenAI platform, what it does is that if you're trying to look for the best flight option for yourself, he's built this into
Hmm.
WhatsApp. So you just WhatsApp the AI, which is called God in a Box, and the AI
Hmm.
crawls across all platforms and tells you this is the right one for you. So
Hmm.
you can actually build so many more interesting things, like you said, on top
Yeah.
of it, and people already are. And
Yeah.
so we shouldn't fear it. We should figure out how to work with it and learn how to really make it a part of, because it is now a part of our day to day. You can't escape it.
Hundo, hundo.
और क्या है आपका prediction?
Okay, guys, my prediction number two, which is in the general space of all things creators and influencers plus plus. But ironically, I am betting hard on the rise of blogs or
Mm,
Substacks or whatever other medium exists, and podcasts.
mm,
And in summary, I'm really betting on long form content being a
yeah,
way being a way to drive credibility for creators. I think specifically on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and even TikTok for that matter, in the American context, there are way too
mm,
many. I want to say almost bots creating, regurgitating, and pushing out content.
yeah,
And I think, when there's so much noise, the only way you can make sense of the noise is build context into your content, right? And I think platforms and ways of communicating like blogs, Substacks, podcasts, all of them will be ways in which creators will be able to build credibility. So if this year was all about jumping down, doubling down on reels, I think next year is going to be about thinking of ways in which you can articulate your credibility, for
mm.
which I think long form content and podcasts are phenomenal platforms.
So I have a genuine concern on the blog format. I'm
Hmm.
just looking at the market, right? If you look at it, and also I think it's a platform play. Like Twitter acquired Review, and they're shutting it down under General Musk,
But
and
they
on
also
the
shut
other,
down Vine. which was like the world's dumbest
Oh,
decision, and Periscope. Like Twitter's
oh,
been, I mean, Twitter, I would like shit on anything that they shut down because they've like literally
that
been
is true.
ahead of the curve, and whatever they've shut down has become the curve. But in any case, please continue.
And Meta launched Bulletin, which is their version of Substack, and they're shutting that down
Yeah.
too. So my question here is that while blogs and Substacks are going to be a core part of it, the scalability of it beyond. See, I know how it works in the business tech space. I think people
Hmm.
subscribe to that stuff. You make money of that stuff. You can scale. But the non-business tech stuff, are people willing to actually churn out money for it? Because for a creator to really invest time and effort into those, if you're not a journalist, if you're not someone who's doing tech and business, can it actually be an avenue for you to monetize long term? Is something which I'm unsure about now, more
Yeah.
because I haven't seen too many examples of that. I mean, especially in Indian context, right?
Hmm.
Half the time newsletters get lost inside your other box, other
Yeah.
inbox on your Gmail. So that's the worry. I agree entirely on the podcast front. Most creators are moving towards wanting this, and in many ways, I feel for creators, it's become this way, and it ties into my prediction as well. And I'll pop into that one once we run with this. Is that creators are realizing that for them to be there long term, they have to build content that lasts longer than that 60
Yeah.
seconds.
Hence
And
my
also,
vlog thing.
I agree.
Yeah. And I'm really, really, really sorry for interrupting you, but just one clarification over there. I don't think, platforms like long form content, whether it's Substack, blogs, or podcasts, will be a monetization channel. I think it'll be a great way to build audiences and build brands. So build your own personal brand, right? Or build your
Oh,
own
nice.
audience, and then
LinkedIn.
engage with that audience in different formats. And that long form content can rest in multiple different places, not just your Substack, or a blog page that you have. But sorry, over to your recommendation
No, no,
on reels and short form content.
no, I agree with you because I'm just trying to figure out written content. I know that LinkedIn's really pushing hard on their newsletter product as well. I
Hmm.
feel it's very well thought out because you have different versions of text. One is a regular post, and then there's an article, and then a newsletter, and they're figuring a way to simplify that as well, basis
Hmm.
subscriptions. But what I'm trying to really understand is from an Indian context, how does this make someone money in the long term? If it's because
Hmm.
we are not one of those like get ads into like your newsletter kind of markets, right? I think the US is that, but I don't think India is that kind of market. So if someone's
Hmm.
a written content creator,
Hmm.
how do you really monetize is a question which I haven't been able to figure out yet. And so for me, the only question mark in this prediction is that while people do for credibility, what else will they have to do beyond a podcast if they want to kind of stick to it? And not everybody can do a podcast, right? People like to write.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's the question I have.
Yeah. No, I feel like we're getting to the same end. The end really
Hmm.
is, so for example, like with your prediction, right? Your sort of focus is on enabling creators to get rid of these hype cycles.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to the same end, which
Yeah.
is basically how do you make content have a longer shelf life?
Yeah.
Because the
And just kind
problem
of
with, yeah, jump in, jump in.
no, sorry, finish. What are you saying?
No, so what I was going to say was the biggest problem right now is, you are literally running on, you're like a slave to algorithms.
Hmm.
So, how much identity do you as a creator even have on the internet? Because you're
Exactly.
essentially perpetually just pandering to the crowd, right? You're pandering
Hmm.
to whatever the algos are telling you to dance around or, jiggle wiggle to. And I think long form ways of creating content actually push a creator to have a point of view, share a voice, and something very specific to say to their customers, so,
Hmm.
or their users. Like, and just to give you our example, right? I think the only reason why Think Fast has lasted for now 52 episodes is because we've had a point of view on what to say in every single episode. Because if we
Yeah.
hadn't had that, then making something last this long is just very, very, very difficult to do. Hence, you end
True.
up picking verticals or topics that have a slightly longer shelf life. I'm not saying this will be at the cost of short form content, but
Hmm.
do you know what I mean? Like it'll be a good supplement to what am I putting on the internet that gives me longevity, and helps me build a brand outside of the dumb shit that I have to do to stay relevant.
Yeah. And I'm taking this to my prediction on this space, which is tied to this, right? Which is basically the fact that we went through this hype cycle, like you said, of short form content,
Hmm.
and everybody kind of felt is long form dead. there's so many
Yeah.
of us who kept saying no, long form is where the future will always lie.
Yeah.
Because in the long term, you want to create content that is in its fullest form, the amount of time it needs to be created. So if video
Hmm.
needs 1 minute, it's 1 minute. If video needs 1 hour, 2 hours, it's 1 hour, 2 hours.
Yeah.
And also with long form, you don't burn out as much because you're creating
Hmm.
content in a certain cycle. And
Hmm.
I mean, I'm talking about the American market right now, right? They're all moving towards seasons, they're going towards taking longer breaks, and they've realized that the seasonality of it, YouTube almost in the US has become like television, where people
Yeah.
are creating specific shows. I think Haley Bieber now launched a cooking show on her YouTube.
Hmm.
And even a Jay Shetty now has a new podcast with another creator whose name I'm forgetting, who's also from I think Indian descent. And they've done a little chat show set, and they're literally taking late night TV and bringing it over there and talking to all creators. So you're seeing this almost replacing what was traditional television, except it's available here,
Yeah.
and that's also happening in India. But the worry of the algorithm, I think the only place where you can still play the long game, and it's tougher to play the
Hmm.
long game only with long form, is YouTube.
Yeah.
But the combination of short and long, where the short almost acts like that discovery tool for people to find you and then you move to long form, is why I
Yeah.
feel YouTube has the right mix of things. And that's the reason why even long form will do really well in the long term, because you can't sustain that hype cycle. People are burning out.
Yeah.
Every creator I speak to is talking about how much they're burning out and how much anxiety they have because they don't know what the algorithm will pick and what it will not pick. Because if you feel you have made a good piece of content, it might not work because the algorithm doesn't pick it up for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
I think in that specific point lies why long form is going to be much bigger, and short form will be the promotional marketing tool for that long form.
Yeah. Yup, yup, yup. Couldn't agree more. Should we take a break before our last
Yes,
set of predictions?
yes. Let's take a break while I figure out if I should spike this tequila, but maybe I will not. I think enough tequila for one night. Come back on Think Fast.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. Here's wishing you all a happy new year. As we step in the brand new year 2023, here's introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, which gives you early access to Paisa Vaisa episodes 3 days before release, ad-free content, bonus content, and access to full episode archives. So get your yearly membership today for only rupees 699. Log on to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisavesa. New episodes are out every Monday. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by sports anchor and author Nishat Pai Vaidya to talk about the greatest sporting moments from 2022. On Anish Thing, Anish is joined by Jesse and Gabriel, prominent names from Asia bar landscape, and Sumana Mutana, co-founder and CEO of the Soul Company. They dish out a long list of 20 best bars in Asia, from Bali to Gurgaon, Hanoi to Hong Kong, and everything about spirits. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is joined by Sangeeta Iyer, nutritionist and founder of a health service called Rewrite Your Story. She shares how animal-based diet changed her life. And on Pulyabazi, Saurabh, Khyati and Pranay revisit the best episode of 2022 and predict the trends of 2023. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media via IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, please spread the word. Tell your friends and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You can also find our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Cap Gemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome back to Think Fast, Devya Sajjano. I'm your host, Dugirala. Who is with me?
That's exactly how you sound in real life, also. Like you have helium
By
in
the way,
your
guess what I
mouth.
ate every day in my holiday? I ate a
I
pizza. I
don't
had an
know.
entire pizza for lunch every day, sitting on a
Oh
beach.
my God. Okay, so
Entire holiday.
ladies and gents, Varun and I have been very serious for two like semi-drunk people, which is kind of shocking. But I have to tell you guys this thing. I don't know how Varun is as thin as he is. He eats like a monster. I have literally seen him demolish a full freaking pizza. Though to be fair, like you left the crust, which is the best part. I don't know anyone who like eats pizza and doesn't finish the crust.
So I actually don't enjoy the crust as much. I enjoy the inside part a lot more. And also, you can finish the
But then
entire
it makes
pizza.
sense because then essentially all you ate was a roti with pepperoni and cheese on it.
Yeah. So what I ate in on my holiday was I ate truffle pizza every day for lunch, and I was like, oh my, I'm sitting on a beach, which is like the best idea ever. I never realized that's such a fun thing to do. Sit on a
Oh
beach, have
my
some
God.
truffle pizza.
Look at this. Varun Raiz has entered the building. But I want to jump to my last and
Yeah.
final prediction for this
Yes.
prediction episode, which basically is within my favorite sector. That's all things consumer brands and consumer tech.
Mm.
I am making two sub predictions. One is premiumization of basics will see big wins. I think we've
Mm.
already seen big successes come out of brands like Atomberg, Sleep Company, Wakefit, like a lot of brands within the pillow, a mattress kind of segment. And then obviously I love what Atomberg's been able to do within, again, like fans or basic, but how do you give that little sweetener in terms of form, shape, size, design, or whatever else, but just bring a little bit of oomph to your like everyday. I know unrelated, but I think Urban Company is also a very good example of premiumization of basics. So take very basic services but bake in some amount of convenience, some amount of product and predictability, and you're able to get that nice 15-20% extra on what you pay if you had to recruit those services in an unorganized way. So one is
Mm.
this. I think the second is, obviously there's been a lot of hype around BPC, which is the beauty and personal care segment. We've discussed Rene Cosmetics. We've, obviously spoken about 82 East, about Anomaly, and a lot of these other brands that have sort of come
Yeah.
up in the past year. But I think 2023-24 will be all about hair and scalp care. I think too much real estate has been given to, your face, specifically in the more like premium segment. So everything has been built around skincare and makeup. But I think the next 2 years is really going to be about personalization of scalp related products and hair related products, not just from a vanity point of view, but even from a uh, you know um, uh, 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 lifestyle issues point of view, which is things like baldness, hair loss around certain times of the year, so on and so forth. So those would be my two quote unquote bets, none of which I'm making with my own cash money, on consumer brands and consumer tech.
I feel like the basics one is interesting, but I would want to look at which ones work and which ones don't. Because I'm also kind of looking at how does, like, say, for instance, a Unilever or everybody else, because you've
Hmm.
had a lot of those people come in and acquire a lot of smaller brands. I mean, a while back we spoke about the acquisitions that Unilever made recently in terms of, let's say, protein, etc., which almost is become a basic for a lot of people now to have that protein shake thing at home. Um, we spoke about how even clothing, etc. So where do you draw that line of what is basic in this segment is what I would look at, and how do you stop someone saying bringing in an international brand here, and also
Hmm.
pricing it right, because suddenly anything international coming in, as much as you might not want to believe it, will become more premium in the eyes of the consumer. So
Yeah.
how does the Indian premium kind of battle that is my only question mark on this one.
So I think the way I'll push back on that is if you look at most of Indian retail, right? If you look at whether it's something, for instance, as simple as mattresses, we discussed this in a
Mm.
past episode, but 70-80% of that market is unorganized. It's,
Yeah.
bhaiyas selling mattresses or pillows or, fans or crockery or whatever else from these neighborhood stores. That's the general sort of retail landscape in India. So two
Yeah.
things are happening. One, of course, parts of it are being organized either by EComm platforms or through large offline marketplaces. So for instance, malls have been a way of aggregating quote unquote, I don't want to say basics, but malls have become a way of aggregating retail
Yeah.
as a one-stop solution, right? As have, for instance, places like IKEA, and you see retail as a obvious strategy for anyone, whether it's Sugar Cosmetics or Lenskart or any of these consumer brands that have really been able to scale. Um, I think there are a lot of like sub segments within this that are still very, very, very untouched. I mean, look at anything, dude. Look at the I was doing research on Corel.
Mm.
So your like your microwave friendly plates. I think
Mm.
that's northward of a 1,500 crore, 2,000 crore
Wow.
business. In isolation. So these like basic everyday plates. right? And I'm talking about organized. So let's not even get into, if you have to include unorganized, how large the market or how large the segment would be. So the point that I'm making is everything from like the spoons you use to the daily plates you use to the tiffin that you use, your Tupperware, to like Borosil. Imagine how giant a business they've been able to build, just around standardization of a brand with respect to your everyday water drinking glasses. So if you literally look all around you, there are a lot of very basic things that can just be branded or wrapped in a almost like layer of trust. um
Mm,
Another great example of it, I don't know how the company is doing, so our listeners can like cross check me on this, but water science, for instance,
mm,
that makes shower heads, and they've
yeah.
literally built a business by with their value proposition being that we help soften hard water, because a lot of water available in India is hard water, right?
Mm,
They have these whatever filters that help you soften hard water. They and copycats of them, or brands similar to them, have really sort of garnered a lot of traction on platforms like Amazon, local retailers and the likes. So the point I'm making is everything from your bathroom fittings to your wash basin sink to the toilet seat to the fan in your house to the organizers that you use in your kitchen. um Again, I'm not sure of their numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of IKEA sales come from their kitchen organizers, because it is basics that makes India go round. It's not your fancy interesting, what I mean, like designer
yeah.
categories that make India go round. It is these basics in which you really see the big wins and the big platforms and products and brands being created.
From that context, I agree with you because I feel that you also don't look at them with as much of a microscope as you would in slightly more defined, like less basic kind of categories. Because here, like, okay, I really want this. Let me find something that looks really great, and it looks a little bit more premium. I'll buy it. So I agree on that context. Well done. Well supported. Well supporting of your own comment. What am I saying? I have no idea.
What is your prediction, my friend? What is your prediction after my consumer brand, the love of my life
So my
rant?
last prediction, and we have a fun extra add-on segment on predictions which will come after this, is actually the fact that I of all people, and I know you've spoken about this, I've never been like a Web3 crypto believer or other promoter in that sense. I own no crypto. I've never really dug into that space, but I've always been a firm believer that whenever the initial phase of everything is when everything seems really cool and fun, and you have like random jazz around it and hype cycle going on about it, which is what it went through for the
Hmm.
last couple of years, and then it all
Hmm.
crashes down, and then people
Hmm.
bring it back doing very clear first principle foundational boring shit.
Hmm.
Web3 crypto blockchain will come back in a big way in 23, sticking to almost like the background, being the foundation people are building on top of. It is not, you're not building a Web3 startup, you're building a startup that is based on the Web3 platform. You're
Hmm.
not building up. So it's going to move to that kind of an explanation. You're already seeing that narrative shift where people are not making what you're building, and you're not building Web3. It's already there, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that's, it'll come back in the most boring forms. It'll be like B2B, or it'll be like something which you won't even talk about, just part of your tech stack in that sense of the word. And that's how it all will come back. Although my only question mark in that segment is going to be how crypto comes back, considering how much
Hmm.
regulation is going to happen in that space. But I feel governments will really use crypto to build that into how they build currencies.
Hmm.
I don't think the private ones will actually do as well.
Hmm. So I have a pushback on this, which is, can you name me one product? Like I
Mm,
can name you, I mean, I'm sure you can also name 20 products that have been built on top of some form of AI, right?
mm, mm.
Um, what has been built on top of Web3 apart from like SBF's ass landing in jail?
So I'd start with blockchain first. I think as a
Hmm.
foundational principle, blockchain makes sense on how you need to build it from a straight up computing point of view. And so I would say that blockchain has been a core part of how people are building stuff for a while now. It's never
Hmm.
spoken about as much because it's not really the most sexy thing to talk about.
Hmm.
But like I talk even for like, as far back as like what 4 years ago, I
Hmm.
met someone who's building almost blockchain as a core part of the ad industry for WPP globally. Right, one of the people who was leading
Hmm.
that went on to build his own agency in that space of the world. So it's been there, but it's very like, okay, I want to understand what this is. I know it's a, maybe the IT guys are handling it or the tech guys or the coders are handling it. I don't need to take care of it as much. So I feel
Hmm.
blockchain will be there. I feel in Web3, it's about that translating to being a core way for you to build out a product or a service. And no
Hmm.
one's been able to do that because you're too obsessed with trying to do it, trying to make something really cool.
Cool. Yeah.
But what you need to do is build something really boring. Because
Hmm.
boring companies make a lot more money than cool companies do.
Oh, hundo. Yeah.
And like you want to turn to the people who have like made shit tons of money, they build the most boring products. So you got to
Yeah.
have enough boring products and services built off of Web3 for us to find those examples just work out. Because I agree with you, there aren't enough examples of that. And even if they
Hmm.
are, you don't know how long they will last because
Yeah.
it hasn't gone through that cycle yet. But give it another year or two, you will see a few more of those examples crop up, is at least my prediction.
Hmm. And I think what you've said is right, right? I think SBF and the FTX and the multiple other crypto debacles that have happened, the one basic thing that will put within the space is regulation, which
Yeah.
frankly even happened during the internet bust. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It takes one debacle to really bring in the regulation, and then things, and then people simmer down, then tempers simmer down, and then people also start making much more sensible bets than they were, in V1, V2, V3, and the likes.
Do you remember hometrade.com?
What was hometrade.com?
So we mentioned the dot com bust. When the dot com bust happened,
Hmm.
everybody's pitch was, I'm building a dot com.
Hmm.
And what is the product? No, I'm building a dot com.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hometrade.com was a company that's built in India,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
which had everybody from a Sachin Tendulkar to all the biggest celebs. Nobody knew what the fuck that company did. You had
Hmm.
hoardings and
Hmm.
ads everywhere. I remember I was in like or 11th grade or 12th grade that point of time,
I
or
was
maybe
8 years old, just letting you know, listeners.
or maybe I was in like early engineering, but nobody knew what that was. And eventually, there was no company. This person had scammed and
Uh-huh.
gotten funding, built a company on the fact that they got celebrities to endorse it, and nobody knew what it was. And it obviously crashed.
Yeah.
And that is
Sounds
exactly
like
what's happened here,
FTX.
right? The same
Yeah.
cycle. You don't know what it
Yep.
is. You just say it's a dot com. Same, it's a Web3 company. But what
Yeah.
is the product? What is the
Yeah.
boring shit? Talk about the boring shit. And I feel that's what it's all about. Hometrade.com, look it up. It's damn, it's a, I used to be fascinated because I would walk by a hoarding. I'm like, what is this company?
Yeah.
And nobody had an answer.
Yeah. Sounds like all of Web3. But speaking of boring shit, and just one last data point to add, I did a quick Google search on the point that I made earlier about premiumization of basics. Do you
Mm.
know how much revenue Parryware makes?
How much?
1600 crores in the
Yay na.
calendar year of 2019.
Toilet banao. Sink
1600
banao.
crores selling freaking toilets and sinks and faucets. So, hundo with you, bro. I feel like it's like the
My,
dumbest
my
shit which
favorite
has the
story is
most amount of money.
I once went to this house of a friend in Bangalore,
Hmm.
and I have this huge house. I'm like, one second, what does your father do? And she's like, he makes bottle caps, like those
Bro,
tin bottle caps on top of like a
if
Coca-Cola,
you
Pepsi,
drive
etc.
down Aurangzeb Road in Delhi,
Yeah,
99% of the people have the homes that they do selling, literally
stuff like this.
manufacturing plastic bottles for Pepsi,
Yeah,
doing shit in like semiconductors, you like making buckles for
boring
belts.
shit.
Like it'll just be the most inane things, but they're literally sitting on a property worth
Are we
thousands and
predicting that people
thousands
should
of
do boring
crores.
shit in 23? Is that what we're saying?
Sign me up for boring shit, guys. Sign
I
me up for
agree.
boring shit. That's
I
all I
agree.
want to do.
And
Okay, but now on to
speaking of signing up, are we doing the next segment now or taking a break?
what are we doing? Jealous me.
Jealous me, tell us, because we have to do our new additional segment.
Great.
Oh, break! Jealous me, I said break. She's like, fuckers, you guys told me it'll be a short episode. We'll lamba baat karo tum log. Okay, fine, fair enough. We'll take a break and be right back with Think Fast. Welcome
We
back to Think
always
Fast.
do this. Every episode is just like it's going to last only 30 minutes. We don't have anything more than 20 minutes. But then Varun and I are like yapping, yapping, yapping. It's like 50 minutes on the clock and we still haven't finished our damn episode. This is called camaraderie, guys. This is what happens
Yes.
when you record a podcast for like, basically a year.
Is that the welcome back? Because just want to say welcome back to Think Fast. We are still
Oh, now you
recording
said.
over alcohol. And by the way, have you seen the new song from Pathan?
Bro, please don't even
So cool,
disgust me with
yeah.
this shit. You
So
are
cool.
such a, I don't even know
I am just
what.
like, I'm obsessing over how cool Shah Rukh Khan is looking. But actually, before Shah Rukh Khan, slide side. Have you seen those videos? Of, I know there's one video of Tom Cruise everybody's seen, which I'm assuming you saw, where he's talking while jumping off a helicopter.
No, but I retweeted the line he said, which
I
was,
saw that.
let me find it. Yeah.
Even
Deep
I.
shit bro line. I'll
You
find
don't
it. I'll
need to be.
find
You don't
it.
need to be careful. You need to be confident.
Oh, yes. Competent.
Yes.
Competent.
Competent. No, he said confident or competent.
Abhi, he said competent.
I saw the video. He said confident.
Slap bet. Slap
देख
bet.
देखते चलो
Okay,
पांच
cool.
रुपए का बेट 5 रुपए
Bro, I said slap bet. Like thappad milega, whoever
नहीं नहीं
has
एक किस्मी
got
टॉफी
this
बार दूंगा
wrong.
किस्मी टॉफी बार यू विल गेट फ्रॉम मी
Okay,
यू वांट
great.
मेलोडी
Thank
चॉकलेटी
you for your ₹2 gift for me for getting this
I'm waiting to
right.
see if Jalasmi leaves this in the episode or not. But nevertheless, we're moving on to an interesting new end segment that we have added this time, thanks to how Suchita has decided to name some of her predictions. Is that if I was a VC, I'd bet on. So I'm going to, since you came up with it, I'm going to let you go first. If you were a VC, what would you bet on in
I
2023?
would bet on Suchita motherfucking Salvan, guys. Number one. Number
Well done, well
one.
done. Cheers, cheers.
To liquid courage. No, but jokes aside, guys, no, I'm being very serious with that one. But apart from myself, I would bet on two things. I'll start with the first one and then it's your turn, which is essentially products and companies that enable side hustles for tier two, tier three women.
Mm,
I think this user base of tier two, tier three women has long been ignored. I think this user base is very aspirational. The people who want some amount of, I don't even want to say financial independence, I'd say more supplemental income for their households. And the people who get identity from being able to give back in their own way. Right,
mm,
these are women who are opening their own salons, the women who are, starting their own small home based kitchens, the women who are looking for an identity outside of just being a wife or a mother. And I think that
mm,
movement generally is picking up fairly significantly in India, slow albeit.
yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine who runs this really interesting company called Air Black. That essentially builds, courses, makeup courses and beauty tutorials for which are largely used by tier two women, and just the insights that he gave me, so shout out to my friend Vidit, but just the insights that he gave me prompted me to come up with this particular segment to bet on. We've already seen massive success of this segment through the likes of Misho 1.0. But this user base is largely untapped. It's a user base that sure needs to convince their husband to spend money on them. That's the sad
Mm,
part of it. But
mm.
I think it's a user base that's ripe for finding the right product at the right price point, and really empowering this consumer base to do more with their time and their life.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous one, right? Because we've also been talking about tier two, tier three for a long time, and we've still not. I think a lot of the product base, a lot of the focus hasn't gone down there as much. But
Yeah.
this would be a great place to start because if you think of one category that needs this is looking for the most amount of empowerment and is looking for
Hmm.
the opportunity to kind of build, like you said, their own kind of wallet value, etc. I mean, if you look at that, there's a stat you keep going back to, right? Is when you look at mobile data, it's so
Hmm.
skewed because most mobile connections are bought on the husband's name or someone in the male member of the family's name is not really bought on the woman's name in our country.
Yeah.
And I feel this is a great way to kind of empower, get that wallet value, get that, get the ability to have, I mean, kind of build revenue for yourself, right? In many ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great one to push because there is definitely a need on both ends. It'll build skilled labor, but it'll also be a larger empowering tool in that sense.
I think once that, and I think second part of it is kudos to the internet, right? It's
Yeah.
forced people to have some sort of an identity, even if that identity is a copy paste of someone who you found online.
Yeah.
And I think especially for women, and I don't say this in a condescending or in a positive way. Like I'm saying this just like as a fact. But I think most women want to be like other women.
Mm.
And fortunately, a lot of the narratives that most women have to look up to isn't just that same housewife character that loomed on their television screens.
Yeah.
They've got much more other much more interesting and nuanced anchors to emulate. So I think some of it is coming from that. But on to yours. What is your, if I was a VC, I'd bet on?
So if I was a VC, I'd bet on a category which is martech, ad tech, and the term I hate, which is mad tech, which is a combination
Hmm.
of marketing technology and advertising technology. As a person who just kind of left that industry, one of the things I've seen kind of grow is that you always know where an industry goes when you see where founders go for their second startup. And a lot of the people who
Hmm.
build really strong agency brands over the last decade or have all moved to building something in this space. I mean, you look, think of Sid Rao, who built out Web Chutney, now building Punt Partners.
Yeah.
We've got Rajiv Dhingra, who's actually been doing this for his company. I think it's called RD and X or RDX, if I remember right.
Hmm.
And you're seeing them really using their learnings of having built, having sold agencies, really getting out and building the products for the future. And
Hmm.
also looking at global trends of where the ad market is going. Like you spoke about earlier, your prediction on how everything will require an ad tier. All of those
Yeah.
require a layer of tech, and those don't have to be built in house only. You can work with partners like this. So if I was a VC, I would fund these areas because there's a lot of growth coming there. It's also like a great scalable ad platform rather than the traditional agency business, which I feel is still very like which very human led. This is very
Yeah.
tech led, and so I would bet on that category.
Yeah, and I think, to the point that you made earlier, Chat GPT and general OpenAI tools can be so instrumental in a lot of this, right?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
especially with creative work, it doesn't necessarily require a very, and especially creative work, which is largely in the domains of like SEO writing or, captions for social media, which is honestly the world's most inane job.
Yeah.
I think all of those can, to your point, can be automated using creating the right stack of technology for all things marketing and advertising. What specifically, and question for you, right? What specifically within marketing and advertising do you think needs to be disrupted? Is it the servicing aspect? Is it the creation aspect? Is it, a mix and match of it all? What is it that's going to be the first big breakout?
So I don't think the servicing aspect should be tech driven. It's always going to be human
Hmm.
driven because humans want to interact with humans. People have tried to build those dashboards which are self serve, and it's never really worked because clients want to be serviced. Clients want to deal with a human being.
Hmm.
So I feel that's not really going to go away unless people build in house teams, which they already are. But I think the
Hmm.
big growth area is to how can you speed up the process and accuracy of the process post that. Like how do you pick the right assets, create the right assets, deploy them right, insert them in the right areas,
Hmm.
and really optimize performance, right? Look at the one area that has really struggled in the last couple of years is just performance. Can you build
Yeah.
tech products that enable that performance to be a lot more accurate?
Hmm.
I think that's really where the gap is. Just the creation and the distribution part of it. It's also a huge landscape, right? Because you always relied on Meta and Google for everything, and now
Yeah.
this opens up to everything else, which interestingly was what people spoke about a while back, right? Remember, all platforms had their own like ad inserts, etc., and all their news
Yeah.
platforms, and everybody else kind of had to like ended up using Google and Facebook. Now you can kind of use a lot of these.
Yes, queen. And my second, if I was a VC, I'd bet on a space or sector that I think one should watch out for is B2B marketplaces.
Mhm.
I think the sector has generally seen fairly good bets play out. So, for example, FAIR, FAIRE in the US has had a fairly strong trajectory, enabling small to mid-sized lifestyle retail sellers to be able to build their supply up in more interesting ways. In India, obviously, you've had companies ranging from Animal, which is a livestock marketplace, to platforms like Bazaar. I don't know if the spelled is Bzaar or some rendition of that, started by ex Flipkart guys. Or if you look at the success of companies like Zetwork or Inframart, I think generally within all things B2B, outside of just infrastructure, there are a lot of interesting plays that can be made. And again, think of like your bigger projects, right? Think of housing as a segment. Think of even like EComm as a segment. What within EComm can be optimized more through a B2B lens. So I'm not referring to Udan, but maybe in slightly more like premium cohorts where the margins aren't as razor thin as they are in Udan. But yeah, I can talk about this endlessly. But B2B
Mm.
marketplaces would be a segment that I would look at more seriously.
And I actually agree with this because I feel the B2B space doesn't get spoken about enough. And in this specific one, there is a need, right? And there is a genuine need to kind of focus on these aspects and really grow them, because let's admit B2B, there was a point of time, and I don't know if you remember hearing this, and I don't know what your perspective was. Everyone say, oh, B2B is not B2C. Like you got to treat it
Hmm.
exactly how you treat consumer. And I feel that that ship has kind of flown for a while, but I feel back to saying, okay, what is a core B2B kind of a space, and how do you kind of build that
Yeah.
in, considering the number of businesses that people are trying to build now.
Yeah.
It's a need gap, which I don't think there are enough platforms for people to really tap into.
Yeah, and I'll end this point at, just look at the performance of something like India Mart.
Hmm.
Operational rigor and operational, excellence and focus. The only thing to optimize for is having the right suppliers and having the world's strongest sales engine.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean, like a much more predictable model to work around with. So that would be it for me. What about you, brother? Round us up.
My other prediction, which is I don't know if it's you'll agree with this, is that edtech is a space to look at,
Hmm.
because edtech has again been through that whole, like, it's gotten burned down because of just the excess of, let's say, everything from a Byju's to an
Hmm.
Academy, everybody else, and people went really mass and military scale. I know Physics Wala is a great example of someone who's done it right. But a few things have made me think about edtech differently in the recent times. One is YouTube obviously announced the fact that they can have YouTube Learning, where creators on YouTube can build courses straight into the platform. They can do ad
Hmm.
free. They can do paid pieces there. But I'm seeing a growing need for edtech which is focused on a non-mass focus, like you're very
Hmm.
specific in terms of what you're building. It could be like, for example, look at a company like a GrowthX, right? And they're
Yeah.
focusing on a very clear kind of area. You think of someone like a growth school, again, similar space, but again, focused on professionals in that sense of the word. But I feel the real category, which we don't talk about enough, is schools. How you're
Hmm.
dealing with schools to build things for students in those spaces, but you work with the school, you're not competing with the school. And so instead of saying I will replace the system, you're saying I'm working
Hmm.
with the system. And I feel the norm mainstream ones, which is the stuff which schools can't build, the stuff which working professionals actually need, which they don't get from, let's say, their HR teams or internal learning and development teams,
Yeah.
that's the area I would look at, because there's so much that can be done there, and not enough, I would say, organized work happening there.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. You mentioned HR. I think HR tech is another interesting space
Yeah.
where large
Yeah.
companies are getting built.
Yeah.
But in any case, with that, our predictions,
ये
and if I were
छोटा
a
एपिसोड
VC, are
थोड़ा
all
लंबा हो
rounded
गया.
up.
छोटा एपिसोड लंबा एपिसोड हो गया.
This
As
is what
always, we are
happens.
Nostra and Damus have had their wine and tequila and have given you lots of predictions. But if you guys have some predictions which you feel we didn't cover, which you think is interesting, I think you should definitely DM us, right? You should DM either of us.
Yes,
I am at the
Queen.
rate Varun Jugi on all social platforms. You are at the rate Suchita Salvan on all
Suchita
platforms.
Salvan. Yes, Queen. And tag us, guys. Tell us what will make it to, your set of predictions for 2023.
And Jalasmi will throw shit at us if we don't say tag IBM podcasts as well. Please tag them as well. Other
Please.
Jalasmi will throw
Please.
stuff at us in our chat window here. Are we
Yes.
recommending anything
I think
to
we've
close this
recommended
episode
a
off?
lot,
I have one recommendation. I
which
don't know if you
is,
watched that Indigo video of
oh,
that
yeah,
what that air
that
hostess had
was
to go
great,
through.
dude. I
I'm
stand
like,
up for that chick.
guys, and I saw that similar thing happening on a return flight. I was in the airport lounge, and I saw someone just turn into the person there, and almost like, don't treat people like servants. Be a
Yeah.
decent human being who talks to a decent human being. That's what you should do in 2023. Be a decent fucking human being, guys. Come on.
Yeah. With special emphasis on the F word right
The
there.
F word is important. Be a decent fucking human being.
Yeah, but dear listeners, please take out time and just like chill out, unwind, relax. I can't believe I'm saying this. If I'm asking you to unwind and relax, that really means that this has been a year, and it's
Yes.
time to kick your legs up, be proud of everything that you've done, and reflect on the things
Please
that you
watch the
haven't
new
done, and
song from
just
Batan, which
please
is
don't. That
please watch all
dance is
songs which
terrible.
has Shah Rukh Khan's 8 packs showing. Jhume
Oh my
Pathan. Thank you,
god,
Jalaspi. What
guys,
a
please
song. I've
watch
seen it
Emily in
20 times
Paris
today
season
since
3
morning.
instead.
Since
Of
it came out at
course.
11 a.m., I watched it 20 times since morning.
And Varun has practiced a dance also.
I will
Ladies
do
and
that.
gents, he was showing us a dance.
I have to.
And Jalasmi and I like spat out our respective dal bhati churma and alcohol watching
Yes.
Varun dance. That's what happened before. But with that, Happy New Year, boys and
Happy New Year,
girls.
people!
And we'll see you in
23.
2023.
2036? No. What is 23?
Vataj.
32. I have no idea.
Very
I'm South
good.
Indian.
Mind blowing.
2023. 23.
23,
Thank you, Vishnu.
24, 25,
2023.
26,
I will see you.
28.
Taste
Yes.
you
19,
and
20,
taste me.
30.
Taste
Toodles,
everyone.
guys.
Toodles,
See
toodles.
you.
Bye.